Hello, I'm Seth for Privacy, and welcome to a special episode of Opt Out. Opt Out's a show where I sit down with passionate people to learn why privacy matters to them, the tools and techniques they've found and leveraged, and where we encourage and inspire others towards personal privacy and data sovereignty. This episode, we're taking a break from the normal structure of Opt Out to focus on a conference I'll be attending and speaking at in April, Monerotopia, and learn more about it from the creator, Doug Tuman. Welcome on to Opt Out, Doug.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, I'm absolutely thrilled to chat with you a little bit more for Opt Out, and just honestly to have a Monero focused and privacy focused as well conference in Monerotopia this year. It's not very often that Monero is represented at a conference, and honestly, I feel like there aren't a ton of privacy centric conferences that aren't just trade shows. So really excited to go in really just a couple weeks now and present as well, and thankful for you putting in all the effort to put that together. But for those who aren't familiar with you, do you mind just introducing yourself and then telling us a little bit about what Monerotopia is?
Yeah, so Douglas Tuman, I run the Monero Talk podcast, and which branched off. We also then started the Monerotopia show. I'm a Monero advocate. Really into crypto, and what I see as it ultimately standing for, moving toward the more decentralized world, breaking down centralized systems. And I found my way to Monero because I think it's the coin that has the best shot at being the most disruptive in that respect. And so just super passionate about it. And that's why I started my podcast, so I can interview people and learn more about it and like kind of, hear, right, get info right from the source, and stuck with it ever since. Just kept going down the rabbit hole. And then, recently decided to throw a Monero conference. We kind of have like the Rolodex to do it because we've been interviewing people in the space forever. We've been going to conferences as media. So we knew who to contact and how to get it going. And it's just a labor of love, just like the show itself. Just wanted to do something for Monero to help grow it, and that's why we decided to throw the conference. And also is because we weren't sure if the MoneroCon was going to take place, which there's only been one so far, and then we had COVID and whatever, and it wasn't really unknown whether or not MoneroCon would take place. So I stepped up and said, hey, I want to throw Monerotopia, and we decided to throw it down in Miami in conjunction with the Bitcoin conference, with hope that we could kind of for lack of a better term, leech off of that a little bit, so we can get some maybe not so maxi Monero people that are Monero curious, that might want to come over and check it out. It's literally just just walk down the block and you're in Monerotopia. So yeah,
very excited for that, and I think it was a good idea planning it around Bitcoin Miami and just the masses that will be there. It'll be a good chance for a lot of people who kind of have a foot in both camps to chat and catch up, and hopefully draw in some people who haven't thought deeply about Monero, but who can learn and just chat with some people from the community. So that will definitely be a good time. I'm very excited to hear all of the speakers you have planned, and we'll dive in a little bit more to what the plan is for this year a little bit later. But I did just want to kind of circle back. Obviously, privacy and the privacy in Monero is something that's drawn you to it, and it's something you've been one of the early people harping on podcasts. You've really, I think, done an excellent job with Monero Talk, pushing some of the harder topics like fungibility, like privacy, like the impacts of censorship and decentralization in cryptocurrencies on your podcast, Monero Talk. So obviously, personal privacy or privacy and money, at least, is something that's a key focus for you. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about what it was that woke you up to the need for personal privacy.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's more of the digital cash thing.
Hmm.
And that's what I really got excited about, was this technology, this protocol that you can use to send people money through the internet, and it would act just like cash. Nobody can stop you from doing it. Nobody can see that you're doing it. So obviously, for that to work, it needs to be private. It wasn't like I was just, some huge privacy advocate and then
Yeah.
got into Monero because of that. It's more so I'm looking for the best form of digital cash. And I'm just really into digital cash because I'm just a diehard Liberty guy. That's kind of like what wakes me up in the morning. That's what I get excited about. Is just fighting for liberty and fighting to make sure we as a society trend towards one where we always maintain our humanity and our individuality. I'm like concerned about these potential dystopia outcomes, surveillance capitalism. And I was always concerned about these things from, when I first started to confront technology, even from a young age. I was always kind of like cognizant of these concepts. And then to just, I was into the sci-fi and, the Matrix, and, I was always into, all those things. And to see it then, these theoretical, things start to come to fruition, I just, am more passionate now than ever. It's not kind of like we used to talk. I feel like we used to talk about these things as like theoreticals, like, oh, we could get to this time where it's like now we're like literally living it, and at the same time, we also have this amazing invention, cryptocurrency, that could potentially, solve those upcoming issues, and prevent us from entering into this dystopia. And so, yeah, the privacy thing is just one element of it. For me, it's the digital cash and the liberty that it has the potential to bring humanity. That's what excites me about it.
Yeah, I love that you're not just like another piece of the privacy community, and so that's why you love Monero. Because I feel like so many people that are into Monero and focus on it are already kind of general privacy focused people, and so that's why they shift that way. But it's always cool to me to hear more from like quote unquote normal people, but just people who aren't as like privacy maximalist or like a little bit more paranoid in the privacy scheme, but who see the value in digital cash anyways, and see the value in the privacy that is necessary for digital cash anyways. So it's always been I think a cool part of your approach, and a fascinating part of Monero Talk too, is your angle is very unique, and brings a unique perspective as to why Monero matters in a broad sense. And then obviously you running for Congress, and just all the different ways that you try to have an impact and to kind of push the envelope towards liberty is a fascinating thing. It's been awesome to watch.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Once again, yeah, labor of love. Yeah, and just the fact that Monero is called a privacy coin, that bothers me. I think it is great for for conveying this concept that it is private, but it also kind of turns it into this niche thing when really it should be the general thing, right? It should be, we like I always say it on the show, right? Like we don't have cash and privacy cash, we have cash.
Just start calling everything else surveillance coins and just call Monero cryptocurrency, since it's actually private for the crypto part.
Exactly. So working on that. I think we're slowly winning that battle. I don't know. What do you think?
Slowly but surely. I've been trying to push some different language around it too, like at least like privacy preserving cryptocurrency or something outside of just kind of privacy coin. But it's a hard thing to shift once it's put in place, and it requires people accepting the issues that are inherent in transparent cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. And that's a whole nother thing to open up, whole nother can of worms. But that kind of is required for that concept to get across, that Monero shouldn't be unique and that it's a privacy coin. It really has the basic things you need in good money, and especially in something that you want to be as a replacement for cash in a digital age. So it really is the bare minimum, but that's a hard concept to get across to a lot of people.
Yeah. but an important one. I saw just, I think it was, I don't know if the video was recent. I think it was just posted like a few days ago. And Andreas Antonopoulos talking about, yeah, it says 1 hour ago, Andreas, should you use Monero for privacy? So I don't know if he recorded this a while ago and just posted it, but it's like a 2-minute video. I just watched it before I jumped on here.
Oh,
And
nice.
somebody was asking, like, should you use Monero if you want to be private? And he was like, pretty much like, yeah, you should, if you want, if that's what you're concerned about. But then he was like, but the thing is, it's a double-edged sword because, Bitcoin is more liquid than Monero. And so
Yeah.
it has a larger anonymity set in terms of the amount of people that use it. So, yeah, you should use Monero if you really use privacy. But if you want like a store of value, use Bitcoin. And so, like that's the type of thing that just like bothers me to the core, because like here's this guy who I loved, Andreas Antonopoulos. I love, not loved. I still do. I think the guy's great. He was amazing, and the way he can convey ideas and the way he talked about crypto at a time before no one really understood it, and he was just able to simply explain it and explain why it's so important. The things that he always talked about really resonated with me as to why something like Monero is amazing. And then here he is basically saying, Monero's great, but it's not liquid. So, but what I don't get is like, you have this platform, you're Andreas Antonopoulos, you are literally at like the crypto guru, right? Like world renowned. So why not just solve the liquidity problem by starting to talk about Monero and telling people they should use Monero, right? Like, sorry to go off on a tangent there, but I'm just staring me in the face. I mean, what's your take on that?
I mean, it's that same thing of people who talk about like, yeah, Monero works well, it's great, but it'll never have the network effect that Bitcoin has. And it's just like, people don't seem to understand how network effects work and that they can change, and that the way that they change is you just start talking about the tool that's better and using the tool that's better.
Right.
And eventually the snowball reverses and it goes the other way. And the same thing for liquidity, like you're mentioning with Andreas. He has a massive platform,
Exactly.
and he obviously sees the technological benefit in Monero. And I don't know, even that the framing hurts me when people say like, if you need privacy, use Monero. And as someone who obviously is very focused on broad personal privacy, everyone needs privacy. Like that's not a caveat. Everyone should then start using Monero if that's the logic behind it. But obviously, it's just this thing that's been twisted into most people don't need privacy. But if you're doing weird things, maybe you should think about using Monero. And it's a framing that's harmful to the cryptocurrency space, but it's also just a framing that's been harmful for years in the broader technology space and in the privacy space, because people go, I guess I don't really need privacy, so I'll just keep using Bitcoin because it's more liquid, instead of realizing that they can use Monero, build up liquidity because they start buying and selling it, and then it solves that one problem, which is not a problem for most people in reality, but solves that one problem as more people start buying and selling Monero because they start using it because it's the better tool for just general usage. But yeah, that's a complex topic.
That's what irks me with the guns and Bitcoin crowd and like the samurai wallet guys, who, once again, a lot of respect for especially the samurai wallet guys, but I feel like I don't know if maybe it's changing. I haven't really tuned into them lately, especially guns and Bitcoin. They have me blocked on Twitter, so I don't really know what they're saying these days. But are they still saying like Monero is just a tool and it's ultimately trending to zero against Bitcoin?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think there's been a pretty large shift, especially just chatting with Ragnar and seeing him talking on Twitter. I think a lot of people who understand the need for privacy, again, not people who need privacy, because everyone needs privacy, but people who understand the need for privacy, and who are in the Bitcoin space. Anyone who is like that and actually has an open mind to doing research and learning the answers to questions about how money should work, about how money can work technologically. I think a lot of them are coming around, and most are doing so in private, and it's not something they're talking about publicly, because I understand, even though it's a bit painful to see people who don't want to cause a ruckus by talking about Monero publicly, even though it is the better tool for many of the situations that they're advocating for Monero or for Bitcoin usage. But I think a lot of people are starting to even come around publicly, and Ragnar's been one of those who's been talking a lot about the benefits that Monero brings, and um, he even went on What Bitcoin Did and talked a good bit about Monero and was talking about how it solves a lot of the key problems
Yeah, but
in
did he say
Bitcoin.
it's just it's just a tool, and like Bitcoin is the store of value coin, and or is that narrative slowly changing?
I think that's the common narrative for people in that place, and I really do think it's a journey. And I think as most people, when they start using Monero and actually interacting with it, and this was a lot of what happened in Ragnar's journey. So you should definitely see if you can get him on Monero Talk, because I think it'd be a great conversation. But
Yeah, would love to do that.
a
He's
lot of
gotta be
his,
blocked. You gotta be
yeah,
the Brit.
yeah,
You gotta be the Brit.
I'll reach out. Well, I'll see what I can
Tell him
do.
I'm a good guy. Come on.
But I think a lot of his journey was because he actually used Monero, and he realized the simplicity and the peace of mind that comes with using a cryptocurrency that handles the privacy for you, that handles the digital cash aspects for you.
Right.
So you're not having to fuss with all that. And that's when he started accepting it on his store, and then that's when it became something he wanted to have as a topic at Barams and Bitcoin. And obviously, that's what I'll be speaking about there. And so I think it's a slow turn, but I think we're seeing a lot of the people who have had hope in Bitcoin as a tool for freedom and as a tool for privacy. And I think who are starting to realize that, well, it can be that for the individual. Monero is at least a key tool that everyone needs to understand and understand how to use and have learned about. But I think, like I said, like as people start using it, it's really hard to go backwards, because once you get used to just being able to spend freely, not having to worry about coin join, not having to worry about coin control and post mix tools and all of these different things, it's very hard to go back to actually using Bitcoin. But it is going to be interesting to see how people handle the kind of the store of value aspects, because I think there's still something to be said with the history of people wanting to keep Bitcoin as their store of value and spend Monero. And as long as there are atomic swaps, I think that's a viable strategy. Obviously, I disagree with that, and I see the long-term store of value properties of Monero as being great and maybe even better than Bitcoin, but I can definitely understand the angle of wanting to kind of use Bitcoin for savings and Monero for checking. And Monero is obviously an excellent tool at that, but it's also an excellent tool for store of value long term.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the whole coin control. I mean, Jesus, the fact that term even exists, that's a problem, right? Like, I don't have the coin control doesn't exist with spending cash, right? You're not like picking
No.
dollar bill you're going to use out of your pocket,
Yeah, it's a huge regression, and
Yeah.
it's something I think people forgot the benefits of a government endorsed fungibility by mandate currency like cash, and they also forgot the value of the physical aspects of cash, which are what make it private. Like, the reason we need digital cash is because cash remotely is a very difficult thing to do. Like, cash by mail is not fun. You can do it, but it's not fun. It's not a great way to pay for things. And people forgot that when Bitcoin was built, and they got excited. And once they kind of realized that we've kind of gone backwards when you actually want to spend it, because like you said, you don't go to the restaurant and pull out your wallet and go, oh crap, I can't give them the $20 bill that I got from this source. I need to give them 2 tens, and then the change they give me back, I need to put in a separate pocket. And like, that's just not something that's a realistic piece of the fiat world, but it's something that we've kind of regressed to with Bitcoin. So it's definitely a tricky piece. And Bitcoin's weird because if you go through and learn and take the time and educate yourself, you can use it privately and you can use it as a tool for freedom. It's just incredibly difficult, and it doesn't need to be that difficult. And obviously, I talk about it a lot, but the main reason I focus more on Monero is because I see it as a much easier tool to recommend to people. I see it as a much easier tool for people to pick up and start using. And even people who don't care about privacy gain those strong privacy benefits and gain the fungibility and all of the other things that come with Monero. So it's a tricky topic, but it's definitely one that obviously has been a long time coming, and I think is coming to a head a bit as Bitcoin starts to get actually used in some interesting real world scenarios, and people get confronted with the hard reality of jail time when they use Bitcoin incorrectly. So it's it's a time where there's a thread of hope to wake people up, and I'm hoping that we can start to kind of shake people and point them in the right direction. And if Bitcoin gets improved and Bitcoin gets fixed and we don't need a Monero, I think that would be awesome. But for now, Monero
Whoa,
is by
whoa,
far
whoa,
the
whoa.
superior solution. Yeah, I know it's not Monero maximalist talk. So
Yeah, no,
let's
you do a good job at that though. That's why they're letting you on the stage at Guns Bitcoin. They're not even letting me in the room, so there's
a little
something
more
to be said.
diplomatic.
There's something would be said in the way you handle things. It's working very well. Keep it up.
So let's circle back, get back on topic, jump back into
Yes.
to Monerotopia talk, and
Sure.
just to start out, why the name Monerotopia? I've never asked you this about your show that's also named Monerotopia, so I'm curious for the answer.
Was actually very similar to the name of your show, Opt Out, in my mind, right? So like that's what Monerotopia is to me. Sunita and I wanted to start like kind of a community oriented podcast show. We wanted to start like living, quote unquote, living in Monerotopia, opting out and then showing people like, let's all opt out together and talking about it. And that was kind of like the genesis of the idea. Like, you want to live in Monerotopia? Let's just start doing it. So Monerotopia is this place that, exists everywhere and anywhere. All you have to do is move all your money into Monero, opt out, and you're now living in Monerotopia. That's kind of the idea, and then just talk about how we really get there, how we create a circular economy, and just talking to people about growing the ecosystem, spreading the good word about it. That's what Monerotopia is all about.
Yeah, so let's chat a little bit more about that idea of a circular economy, because I think that's a thing that you've done an amazing job with Gratuitas Coffee and with your kind of representation of Monero and of Gratuitas at different conferences that you go to as media. And it seems like that's also a focus of Monerotopia. So you mind sharing a little bit more about like why you see value in building a circular economy, and then maybe how that intersects with the focus of Monerotopia this year?
With the value in building, I mean, I think that is the goal. That is the end goal, right? So we move away from fiat. We completely opt out, and now we're no longer then reliant on receiving permission from the government. We just start using our own cryptocurrency to compete with the traditional world. And, if I could live in a world where I can, buy my meat and buy my eggs and whatever, pay my rent in Monero, mission accomplished. And so that's, probably our best route towards success is creating this circular economy where we just all opt into using this, as opposed to, trying to get governments to make it legal tender, which, we saw that happen in El Salvador. That was cool. Or people have different opinions on it, but my point is it should just be this thing, just allow organic adoption to take place. People have a real need for digital cash, and the quicker we get there, the more powerful it becomes. So that it literally is the goal, circular economy for crypto. And then what was the second part of the question? Like, how does that play into, well, the gratuitous thing was, once again, it was just a project. We were trying to showcase a use case for digital cash. So here's a way, something you weren't able to do pre-crypto, but not necessarily like buying things on the dark net. Not that I necessarily think there's anything wrong with that. I think those are just open markets. I'm a big pro open market guy, but I wanted to convey something maybe more to the mainstream, right? So like, here's an example. You go buy your coffee at the Brooklyn coffee shop. We're accustomed to tipping the barista. Well, how cool would it be if you could also tip the farmers that picked your beans?
Yeah, such a cool idea.
With crypto, you could actually do it with Monero in particular, right? On chain, super easy, super cheap to transact. On the other side, you just need to give the guy a piece of paper, the guy or the girl, a piece of paper with their 25-word seed on it. technically don't even need, for the initial purposes, right? Just they want to just have that little piggy bank with little digital gold nuggets going in it. Literally all they need is the piece of paper with their seed on it. And then people in all over the world can zap them little tips directly without going through a bank or anything, or so when I thought of the idea, it kind of blew my mind, and I was like, I got to get this up and running. And I thought of it many years ago, actually, and initially was going to try to do it for Bitcoin when I was a BTC maxi. And then actually when I got, when I became a Monero guy because of, the belief in, that it was a more pure form of digital cash, I then also said, but wait, does this idea not work as well? Because, people can't see the transactions going through. And I was like, even like a little, so I see, the use cases of both cryptos even there, just looking at this idea. And then ultimately I was like, actually, no, it works better with Monero because the people receiving the tips don't want the whole world to know that they got these tips, especially, they're like in El Salvador where like, if they get like $100, that could potentially turn into thousands of dollars over time. They probably don't want their neighbors to know about that, so I ultimately ended up being like, actually, no, it works perfect with Monero, and that's especially with the cheap transaction fees. But yeah, that's the whole gratuitous thing. And then Monerotopia itself, in terms of circular economy, I mean, we're just trying to showcase like let's just start using Monero. So we're gonna have vendors at the conference accepting Monero. You'll be able to buy your drinks with Monero. We're probably gonna sell like tickets, because like just so commerce can flow quickly, because we're gonna have like 2 bars set up that are going to be serving gratuitous coffee, Cuban sandwiches on demand that people will make, and cocktails all day long. So you could buy, these tickets that will then be redeemable for anything there. But then there's also going to be additional vendors that, to be a vendor, you have to accept Monero. So there'll be vendors there selling magic mushroom growing kits for Monero, selling hemp products, edibles, and all this other, fun stuff for Monero. And yeah, just try to showcase in that respect.
So what is it this year that I say this year, this is the first year of Monerotopia. But what are you most excited for at Monerotopia in just a couple weeks now?
Well, I guess just that it's the first one. For me, like this, I'm super psyched that we have a really good lineup of speakers, you included, obviously.
Obviously.
So like that was like the thing that, that was like kind of the initial worry. Like, can we pull in get the talent, we got the talent there. We got the content. Venue is pretty kick-ass because it's right down the block. And then so really the only thing, like fingers crossed, is that we get a good crowd, and we already got a pretty decent amount of ticket sales. And then with the amount of speakers and vendors there, it's going to be a party. So I'm just excited for this thing just coming to fruition.
Yeah, I'm sure with all the work that you've poured into it, it's just going to be an exciting day to actually sit down when things get rolling and realize that what you build is kind of paid off and worked out.
Yeah, and people could celebrate Monero a little. Monero is a little funny too, because everybody, it is more privacy centric. People are trying to stay off the radar, so it's got a little bit of that going to it. But we've tried to, make everybody feel comfortable with attending the conference. You could essentially attend anonymously, right? You could just buy your ticket with Monero, or just ask for an email address. Use whatever email you want. You could even just come to the door and buy a ticket at the door. The only reason I'm not encouraging people to do that, because I just want to like know how many people are going. So I hope people buy in advance. But you could essentially attend pretty anonymously. Just grab your ticket, out the door.
Awesome. Yeah, it's very hard to pull the Monero community together because, like you said, they're not only very privacy centric, but usually just on kind of a different, more cypherpunk wavelength than the Bitcoin crowd. So a little bit less party and a little bit more, a lot of times heady or just kind of technological. So that's definitely a different crowd, but it'll be a fun time to get a ton of people there together. And I know a lot of the kind of the OGs of Monero are going to be there and giving talks and chatting. So yeah, very excited for that.
amazing lineup of like pure Monero people that are going to just be talking about the protocol. But then we also have like, new people to the community. That's really cool.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
our early morning speakers, like Martha Bueno. She's a local to Miami, of Cuban descent. And she's running for office down there, and she's like recently discovered Monero, and she's really into it. She wants to figure out how to use it to help Cubans, basically for sending remittances to
Yeah,
Cubans and
yeah.
things like that.
Perfect for
So
that.
like, I'm excited like for her talk in the morning. I'm excited for so many. One that I could announce here, we didn't even put it on the
Oh,
website yet, is
let's do it.
Philip Zimmerman. So, do you know who he is?
The name rings a bell, but I don't know off the top of my head.
The inventor of
Ah,
PGP.
PGP. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So
Awesome.
how awesome is that? No, so he's the only one speaker that won't be in person, which is
Okay.
fortunate. But it's awesome that
Yeah.
everybody else pretty much is in person.
Yeah.
But we still thought it'd be worth it to have him, even though he's remote, just because he's Philip Zimmerman. So I'm really excited for that. Monero community can ask him. It's basically just going to be a Q&A session with him, not
Mhm.
really a talk, which is awesome. So everybody can just like ask their questions. For people that are listening right now. So yeah, he was the inventor of PGP, and what's really interesting about him is he was basically kind of like the guy who made encryption, legal for all in the U.S. Right? So there's this time where the
Mhm.
U.S. government was basically trying to ban encryption, or as calling it, what was it? They said it was like an illegal arms essentially, and that they didn't want it being used among the citizens or exported as they essentially didn't want it being exported as a technology that others can use. And he was kind of like the guy that got us to the point where it's like, okay, it's basically our constitutional right to essentially have and use encryption. So it's really interesting with what's going on right now in crypto, right? Because we're reaching that point where that
Mhm.
question is going to be asked, right? Because Bitcoin, maybe not so much. Maybe the U.S. government is completely okay with Bitcoin because it's essentially traceable, right? But with Monero, we don't know. Maybe they do try to ban it. Maybe we have like our PGP moment with Monero. So I think it's cool that we have this old school guy who's essentially already been through this, and so it'd be interesting to hear his kind of comments on all that.
Yeah, it should be a great Q&A. I'm glad you're able to get him, and it'll be a fun conversation to have for sure. And I know with the speakers, there's kind of a split speaker schedule. So you're having normal speakers during the day, and then kind of an uncensored section afterwards. Do you mind kind of breaking out why that is, and what the approach there is going to be?
Yeah, so that came out of the whole debacle when we first started this conference. We came out of the gate. We thought we were doing amazing work. We're like, oh, we got speakers lined up. And one of them was Chris Sky, who's a very controversial figure, apparently, who I had just had on my show. We had a great conversation, and nothing too controversial was said.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know much about the guy, whatever. Anyway, he's a very divisive figure. And like, I don't know what percentage of the Monero community doesn't like him, but there is some cohort that really does not like the guy, and a very vocal cohort that like attacked us endlessly. And basically, what happened was like, you were there, but for anybody listening, it created an issue. And then so our realization was, I want to stick to my ideals of, here I am, like Mr. Liberty guy, and free speech money, and I want to stick and live by those ideals, because that's what will make me, sleep soundly at night. And I was finding it hard to do so with this conference. So we devised a way to basically allow, people to self-register as a speaker. And the idea being, so then that removes us as a potential gatekeeper. And we did it for, experimentally for a portion of the conference. So the morning would be curated. I think there's certainly something it's a conference. You want people to get value out of it.
Mhm.
And they're going to get value by if we curate it and we give them the best content possible that talks about these topics. So obviously some kind of like completely open-ended thing where anybody come and talks probably just going to be a shit show. So we tried to do a hybrid, so half shit show and half curated. So, but the evening, I don't think it's going to be too crazy. We had like 4 people reach out. I put up 3. We only have room for 3, so the 4th I had to tell, sorry, no, it can't come up. But they self-registered and they sent us to Monero as a down payment for their spot. Because I don't know who they are, I don't know if I wanted to kind of them to prove that they at least are coming to talk about Monero, right? Yeah. I figure if they have 2 Monero to send me and willing to send it, they have to at least be somewhat familiar and into Monero, right? And they're going to stay on the topic of Monero. But yeah, that was the thinking there. So day is just going to be like a traditional conference, and nighttime is this like, free speech event where anybody can come up and speak. And we got 3 anonymous speakers that are going to be presenting at night.
I've definitely never heard of that concept, so I'm interested to see how it plays out. It's definitely not your normal conference there, but it'll also just be a fun time to hang out with people in the Monero community after hours and see what happens.
Yeah, it's going to kick off interesting to a party at night too, because we're going to have performances. We have Crypto Bear that's performing. We have the Free Knots that are performing. We'll probably, I guess, do that after the after dark speakers, and then like it will just be lights off and just like party. But my hope is like party's going to happen throughout the entire day. So I put the bars outside of the main hall. So you could either chill in the hall and listen to speaks, or you go out and like take a smoke break and get a cocktail and like just talk to people. So my hope is like, half the party will be partying the entire time while the other half is inside, like listening to the talks.
So people definitely need to bring their Monero wallets ready. But what else should people know in advance about like paying, booking, the venue itself, any recommended hotels, any kind of details that they need to know before they head out to come to Monerotopia?
Yes. Good. Thank you for asking that. Number 1, they should buy a ticket today. So we know how many people are coming so that we can guarantee that they can get in. But if they can't, they could show up at the door and they can pay in cash or Monero. Number 2, in terms of like where to stay, we put it up on our website, like recommended places. We coordinated with the vendor who they also happen to own a bunch of hotels. So we listed a bunch of places where you might be able to get a decent deal, but to be honest, it's not super cheap because it's Miami and there's a lot of conferences, especially now at this point. But there's still hope, So number 3 is go to the Monerotopia Telegram group. And there everybody's just kind of talking Monero and talking about the conference, but it's also a good place to like, team up with somebody, get an Airbnb or somebody that already has a room, Airbnb, coordinate, get to know them, maybe crash on their couch or something. So that's taking place on the Monerotopia Telegram. A conference is starting super early because we have so many talks. So we're like first talk starts at like 8:15. I guess doors maybe will open at like 7:30. So, try to get there early so you can get in, grab your gratuitous coffee, a nice warm Cuban sandwich and strap in for a wild ride. That's really it.
Awesome. Yeah.
We might have an after party too. We might do like a bonfire on the beach.
It's going to be a heck of a day.
Yeah.
Start at 7:30 and who knows when. But Cubans all day long. So that's what really matters.
Coffee and Cuban sandwiches will keep everybody going.
Awesome. Well, last question I had for you, Doug, is just how can listeners help support what you're doing with Monerotopia, even if they're unable to attend? Because I know travel right now is really tricky. It can be hard to get into the U.S. if you're outside. Miami at that time of the year can be really expensive, and there's a lot of things that go into actually traveling to a conference. But for those people who can't make it, what are some ways that they can help out with Monerotopia?
Spreading the word to others. Helping us just get the word out there to everybody. And what we added we added a virtual conference component actually. So we just put that up there.
Oh, okay.
I think we
Nice.
just put it up today or yesterday. We teamed up with the Crypto Vigilante. So there, we don't really have the capacity to do everything we're doing and then plus run the virtual conference. And it's something we wanted to do. So we're like, oh, why don't we have somebody else do it that already knows how to do this? So we teamed up with Raphael from the Crypto Vigilante. So he's going to be, I don't know, he's going to pretty much like kind of be in a tent outside running the virtual conference version. So all the talks will be streamed live. But we're charging for that. But it's reasonable price. I think we put it up for like $10 less than the physical ticket, so it's like $89 or something. And so we'll stream all the talks will be streamed live there, and then with like Q&A, one-on-one Q&A, the Raphael's going to have with the speakers. We're asking the speakers after they speak to like go, spend like 10 minutes with Raphael, and he'll give them.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. And then, he'll have the live viewers at home being able to, interact and ask their questions. So yeah, if people want to participate, they literally can. They could attend the conference virtually.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for jumping on, Doug, and chatting with us and walking through what Monerotopia is, and obviously a lot of your background and your heart for liberty and focus is there. And obviously, like I mentioned at the top, I'm really excited to come to have a Monero conference to go to and be able to hang out with a lot of the Monero community there, also to speak and just hear some great talks. So thank you so much for the effort that you've poured into that. I have not organized a conference, but I have heard that it is one of the harder things to do and very, very time consuming on top of everything else I'm sure you have going on. So thank you for pouring that time into it for the community. I'm very excited to jump in just a couple weeks now.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me on your show, helping me get the word out. And thanks for participating in the conference. We're really excited when you said you could commit to it. And yeah, I have a ton of respect for you, man. And, I think you're doing an amazing job. And you're one of these kind of like level-headed, down to earth guys that has really good instincts. So please do not hesitate to let me know and let Sunita know if you think we should be doing anything different with regards to the conference too, because that's one of the things, it's like you're doing these things. It's hard to also have an outside global perspective as you do it. You kind of get myopic. So please don't hesitate to hit me up if you think there's anything else that you think we should be doing or doing differently.
Yeah, definitely will do. Thanks, Doug.
Cool, man.
Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of Opt Out. If you did, please take a moment and subscribe to the podcast, or if you're already subscribed, share it with one friend or family member this week. As always, you can check out the link to the guest content and contact info, as well as links to all of the tools we discussed in today's episode. Now get out there and opt out this week.